Crime has fallen to its lowest level for nearly 30 years. These latest figures for England and Wales come as a new report says budget cuts proposed by the government could mean thousands of officers being taken off the streets. Ministers dispute this, saying there are backroom savings to be made. Our Home Affairs correspondent Andy Ty is at a police station in central London. Andy.
George, if these figures had come out a few months ago, police officers in stations like this one across England and Wales could have expected a resounding pat on the back from ministers. But the new government have always had their doubts about these statistics, and they were quick to remind the police today that they've got to bear their share of the burden when the spending cuts come.
Can it be true? Is crime really falling in practically every category? The government's number crunchers say yes, as do the police, and apparently the public too, though only a relatively small sample of them. The latest annual crime figures show that according to a survey of households, crime's down by 9%, to the lowest level in 30 years, while crime recorded by the police has fallen by 8%. But what about offences that the official statistics don't show, either because they aren't picked up in the survey or they aren't reported to the police? Ministers say today's figures, for when Labour was in power, don't forget, only give a partial picture.
I wouldn't say that crime figures that show that between 5 and 10 million crimes are being committed a year are fantastic. We are a high crime country. Every day, 26,000 people become victims of crime. We know an awful lot of crime is unreported, so let's be complacent.
But one former police chief is warning today that government cuts could mean police forces losing around a quarter of their workforce.
In the last few years, we've got used to seeing neighbourhood policing teams. We've got used to seeing officers in our localities doing the kind of things that are important to local people. Now, that's the bit of the service that has expanded most recently. If we start to lose that, people would notice it very quickly. It would be back to largely a response-orientated police service.
Any problems, any issues?
Out on the streets of Surrey today, the kind of policing that forces want to hold on to. And the government thinks they can, if they're ruthless enough at finding efficiency savings. During the Labour years, spending on the police shot up. In 1999, it stood at £9.8 billion. By 2009, it was £14.5 billion. That's a 48% increase.
They've never really had to clearly demonstrate, productivity and value for money.
But with the biggest chunk of police budgets going on people, the last Home Secretary says the public will notice when the money gets tighter.
This government thinks international development is the priority. I think they're right in that, but not policing. And I think that is going to lead to these figures actually changing dramatically because the police don't have the resources to do the job.
There is one hopeful fact from today's figures. Little sign yet that the economic downturn has fueled a predicted surge in offending.
Well, tonight the police say that they know in future they're going to have to do more with less, but they remain committed to protecting the public. George.